and welcome back to another video. You must be thinking, what are these ghastly canvases doing in front of the camera? So I do a lot of acrylic pouring, and sometimes those acrylic pours don't go as planned, or I've done multiple pours on a canvas and it has become unusable for further pours because there's no absorption, so the next layer of paint will crack, etc. So I thought, I've had them kind of like stacked up, I've got a few others as well, but these are two of the same size, and I thought I'm going to do a little bit of abstract art. It's very different to what I usually do, but I've seen a lot of YouTubers do it, and I've seen a lot of people on Instagram do it as well, where they actually use I think the Americans call it speckle. I don't know whether this is the same thing, but it's a ready mixed filler that you fill your holes in your wall with. Now I've had this probably about 5 years and slowly been filling up walls and things, and I'd like to get a fresh for when we move into our new house, so I thought I'll use this up for this purpose. It probably needs a little bit of mixing. Yeah, it's a bit watery in there, it'll need a bit of quick mixing, but that should be enough to cover these two canvases, and I thought it'd be nice hopefully to make something that I can hang on the walls at the next house. So my thoughts are, I'm actually going to give it a quick layer of gesso just to get rid of the bright colours, then I'm going to apply all of that filler on top, create some funky patterns, let that dry, and then we're going to kind of almost do some washes over the top just to add a little bit of colour, a little bit of depth, and see what we're working with there. So hopefully we can create some nice looking art, and I thought I would just bring you along on the journey of creating and exploring a little bit of abstract art, which is not usually what we do on this channel. So let's get straight into it. Right, so we have both canvases gessoed and drying now. I actually had a thought that it'd be really cool to have a little bit of glow in the dark going through this, so you wouldn't see it during the day because of the colour and the speckle, but during the night I thought it would be really nice to have just an ounce of glow. I think just running through it, so I'm going to use that lip powder that I have from Stuart Semple, and I'm actually going to mix it together with a little bit of the wall filler and then just dot it round, so when I start creating texture, that will like kind of mix in a little bit and create a little bit of glow in the dark here and there, but not all over, and hopefully you won't be able to see it too much. I know it does have that little bit of greeny tinge to it, but hopefully the colour that we put on once it's dried will take that away. So in terms of the tools that we will be using to kind of create texture, create patterns, we have a fork, which is always a good one, and then a few different types of palette knife. I just thought it might create some different textures, different shapes. I don't really know what pattern I'm kind of going for, so I think it might be a long process of trial and error, of just kind of practicing, I think, of just coming up with some sort of pattern. I'm trying not to be influenced by patterns I've already seen, but inevitably you always get influenced by certain things that you see, so I am trying not to do that, but we will see what kind of comes to mind. So if we put those to one side, we bring this wall filler over. Okay, so we have a pot here. Right, so I think firstly we need to mix this water in here. Like I say, this is very old wall filler. I don't even know if it's going to be good enough to use, but we'll have a go. Let's get a bit of this liquid going through here. I'm hoping it's wet enough, but we might have to add a touch of water just to get it moving. Although we seem to be loosening it up a little bit. I'm going to add a drop of water. I just think it's better. It will dry out, it doesn't matter. I just think it's probably better to have a bit more of a liquidy mixture, so that we can work with it and shape it a bit easier, so it's not as lumpy as well. So we get this nice and smooth. Okay, so I think that looks like a really nice smooth consistency, but nice and thick that we can shape it and it'll hold its shape. So I am going to put a good, I actually think this is going to be too small. Okay, so we have this pot, just found this. We're going to put a good amount of this filler in here. I don't, like I say, I don't want this glow in the dark to be, like I don't want the whole thing to be glow in the dark. I kind of want just ridges of it. So I'm gonna do probably about a third of what we have. I'm making a complete mess here. So about a third like that. I'm gonna make a little well in the middle. This lip powder, annoyingly, no matter what I do, seems to always get into the grooves of the thread of the screw cap. It's really annoying. So I'm gonna add a healthy amount. I don't know how much would show up. Let's go about that much. I want it to show up, but I don't want it to be garish. I want it to just be subtle and nice. I'm going to mix that powder in to that bit of speckles there, and hopefully that shows up. It might not. This speckle is very thick, it's very opaque. It might not show up at all, but we can but try. It's all an experiment. Right, so we've got that mixed, we've got this mixed. Let's bring back our canvases here. Right, so I want to do these as a pair, so I'm going to butt them up on their flattest edges. Those two are probably the flattest, like that. I want them, so I will probably mount them with a little space in between. Then I am going to just basically cover them. We're going to put this speckle all over. We're just going to cover them. There's no point me even talking through this. You can see exactly what's happening. So let's speed through this and see what we can come up with the sculpturing process. decided on a little bit more of an understated texture on this. I was trying to fill in the rest of it, and I think just this is very nice. It's very understated, it's very simple, and I think that works better, especially since these canvases are very small. I just went ahead and tried to tap down some of these edges. I probably didn't need to cover the edges, but I did. I'm gonna let it dry now completely. It's already starting to firm up as I was doing it. Big chunks almost came out if I wasn't too careful. So I'm going to let that dry completely, and then we will come back once it is dry and we will assess what we want to do next. I do think I may need to have to just neaten up some of these, but once it's dry, hopefully that might be a little bit easier. I'm not really sure. And then maybe the sides we could sand down a little bit or something like that, and create something a bit more smooth. But yeah, let's let this dry, and then we will come back and see what we want to do with the paint, whether we want to add a bit more colour, and we'll actually see right now whether the glow-in-the-dark pigment is showing up at all right now. It may change when it dries, so let's turn the light off. Oh yeah. Okay, so it's blowing out a little bit on camera, but in person it's actually only ever so slightly there. It's actually there way more than I thought it would be. Hopefully the paint dumbs that down a touch, but flaming hell, that glow-in-the-dark pigment really does show up in those. Okay, so interesting. We will see. It might be a little bit too much. But anyway, we'll see once we add paint. Right, these are all dry now, as you can hear. Solid as a rock. However, we have a problem. So I was having I stupidly fiddled before it was fully dry, but there's a lot of, because a few areas of this were very thick when I was carving into it, the peaks of these grooves are quite tall. Now, I think they're fine now, they're fully dry, but because they were semi-dry, I stupidly crumbled a couple. So there's a few bits that are really crumbled. Now, I don't think there's a way of saving that, and I think we're going to just roll with it. So I'm going to brush all these bits off very shortly, kind of brush anything loose off, make sure it's all solid. Then I thought, I did a few mock-ups, I'll pop them all over the screen here, and I want to just colour the grooves. I think that'll be the nicest thing, kind of let the colour seep in, but have a very watered down colour. Now, these colours that I've chosen, I mean, they may not be the right colours for the job, but I can't really visualise it. I'm struggling to visualise it. So I've chosen some inks because I thought they were going to probably provide the better wash. So it's going to be a very watered down wash of these two colours. So we have what colour is this? Marine Blue and Purple Lake in FW Acrylic Artist Inks by Rowney, and I'm going to water these down so they are so thin there's barely any colour, and we're going to just run that over this, let it settle into the grooves, so the grooves will be darker, the tops will be lighter. I don't know whether it'll soak in very well, but we'll have to see. And I was going to do a coat of varnish to kind of keep these from crumbling, but actually now they're fully dry, they're not crumbling at all, so that idea has gone by the by. It doesn't matter anymore, so that's fine. The other thing I'm not very happy with are these edges. I kind of plastered it on and they're a bit crunchy and a bit thick, so I might break off anything that looks a bit too thick. Maybe we'll sand those down in the future, but I might just leave it how it is when we finished painting it, and we'll see what it looks like. So let's get into doing some washes. Let me brush all these bits off, and then we'll talk about how we feel about it at the end.
Why? 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 Why?
Well, this hasn't gone to plan. So after I did the colour actually started to seep into the background areas, and I wasn't really happy with that, and so I felt I needed to cover that up. So I started adding washes of the colour into the background, and then I made a bit of a watered down PVA mixture and laid on some silver leaf, which then I scraped off, and it kind of has picked up all the texture, which is nice. But I hate it. It's awful. I don't think this has turned out quite how I envisaged. It will definitely not be on my wall, let's say, but it was fun to experiment. This filler has started to crumble a little bit, like quite a lot. It's not as tough as I thought it would be. Maybe the speckle that Americans use is perhaps maybe a little bit more sturdy, or maybe I needed fresher filler, or maybe not put so much so thick on here so that you've got these higher ridges, because some of these are a bit sturdier, and to be honest, I did fiddle with it a little bit when I probably shouldn't have, so that's probably on me as well. But I think I like the idea. I think if I was to do this again, which I think in the future I will, I would definitely cover the whole thing in texture and leave it as that. No colour, no embellishments, nothing. This is awful. I really do hate it, but I think it's important to show that some things just don't go to plan. I was experimenting, I was using up old filler, I was testing out, you know, doing washes, how this filler would react with washes, which I think it's reacted really nicely to it. I just think it needed to be the whole thing, and it all needed to be textured, because having these swirls here kind of dictated that they're the only places I needed to have colour, because I think it would have looked a bit strange having background and foreground colour. So I think in the future, do the whole thing textured in like this sort of pattern, and then I can decide whether to leave it blank or colour it. I'm not sure. But I also think the finish, I just think I should have worked a little quicker. It was starting to dry, it was starting to become a bit too thick, and I think that's where this awful textures kind of come from here. But yeah, things don't go to plan. It's always nice to experiment. This has taught me some things for the future, and just keep an eye out, because I probably will do another attempt at this abstract type art with kind of texture and things like that. Maybe I'll use something different, I don't know, but I've learnt a lot from this, and it's good to experiment, and it's good to fail sometimes, and this is certainly a failure in my eyes. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed the video, and I hope you've enjoyed seeing something that doesn't actually always go to plan, and I hope to see you in the next video.